Steve, how are you doing today?
Very well indeed, thank you, Roy.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. We are, of course, here to talk about your new Alan Partridge show, Stratagem. Can I ask what the process was behind that? Like, at what point you were like, this is what I want to do next?
Well, with regard to Alan Partridge, I've been writing that with a number of people, most recently, the last 10 years, with Rob and Neil Gibbons, for so long that we just, whenever we come back to the character, we always think, what should we do? After we've gone off and done various other things, we reconvene the Alan Partridge table and decided, and we thought we hadn't toured with, well, I hadn't toured with live for a while, and we thought, why don't we do a show that's just entirely Alan Partridge, a live show. Having done lots of television and radio and podcasts, one thing we hadn't done for a while was a live show. And we thought the idea of having an entire show dedicated to Alan would be quite an interesting exercise.
Well, just even from like the teaser trailer that went out for it.
But whether you're a pro-European who's had the jab or a Brexiteer who doesn't believe in vaccines, I want to build a bridge. Stratagem. For while we don't always agree, what really binds us as a nation is when we, all of us, together, can't stand something.
There's a weird kind of almost, when you just come on and it sounds like you're subliminally trying to get people to enjoy the word stratagem in the middle of the full teaser. It was almost like this weird V for Vendetta, totalitarianism, like subliminal message thing. Is that like kind of part of the show? This new idea of what?
I think, well, we wanted to do a show that was part sort of TED lecture and part inspirational speaker, part lifestyle guru, motivational speaker, spiritual guru, all mixed into one. So, someone who, as Alan sees it, using his charisma to inspire people, to help them overcome their personal issues, to help explain modern politics to them if they're middle-aged, and to show how relevant he is if you're a millennial or a Gen Xer, by trying to be up to speed with the new ways of thinking. So yeah.
But for this, like as we said, we're actually kicking off the show in Ireland. Would you find yourself maybe tailoring the humour slightly for different audiences, knowing how Irish people might react to some jokes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we also it's fun, when you go to a different place, to have what would Alan say about this place, what would Alan say about that place, and of course, because Alan's, you don't go along and see Alan Partridge and not expect him to put his foot in his mouth, because that's part of the joy of it. So it's sort of a way of Irish people would be able to laugh at a British person getting it wrong about Ireland, basically, which is what we always do when we've done Ireland, right back until, years and years ago, Graham Linehan and Arthur Matthews, who wrote Father Ted, 25 years ago now, they played to RTE producers in an episode of Alan Partridge, and that was the first time Alan dipped his toe into talking about the Irish. So yeah, we'll definitely write some stuff about the. I mean, there's a character I did in the last series called Martin Brennan, who was a West of Ireland farmer who looked like Alan Partridge and came onto the show and basically just sort of took Alan for a ride, and Alan wasn't really aware of it. So he'll be doing the same thing in the live show. So he'll be there too. So there is actually something that's, although he'll be in all the shows, although he's an Irish character, we're not going to do him just in Ireland. We'll do him everywhere. But Alan will certainly talk about the Irish in a way that he thinks is quite sensitive. But of course it won't be. It'll be insensitive and ignorant.
Well, I was actually going to bring Martin up because it's been, I think, almost 3 years to the day since he kind of debuted. And he left such a huge lasting impression on people over here. Like when I told my editor I was speaking to you today, he told me to this day, people still WhatsApp him memes and GIFs from that like little bit of the show. Yeah. So like, are you aware of the impact, I guess, that he's had?
So I did hear on social media that it did have a bit of an impact. And I was pleased because I didn't want to do, even, there's a funny thing when you do if you do a character who's Irish and it appears that you're laughing at him, but in actual fact, what you're doing is, I was very careful actually when I wrote it, that the character is laughing at Alan. Martin Brennan is laughing at Alan. You realise that as the interview goes on. I thought I'd be able to get away with it. And also I felt like I'm being really specific here about a specific character from a specific part of Ireland. And because I'm not being generic, I think the Irish will respect it. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. And so social media reflected that. Because if you do something that's just lazy and potentially racist, then you'll get found out pretty quickly. And I think it passed the smell test for a lot of people. And this sort of, and also they liked it because if you get something right, people should always say, oh, you know, I know someone like him, or he's like my uncle, or he's like my grandfather, or whatever. And that happened. So that's really gratifying because it's not risk-free when you do something like that. You know?
Come out, you black and tan, come and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals down in Flanders. Tell her how the IRA made you run like Callaway, run the green and lovely lanes of Killashandra.
When he first arrived on the screen, I was like, oh, this could go one of two ways. And thankfully it landed as fantastically as it did. But like, I know a lot of young Irish comedians who would be very aware of, I don't want to say like cancel culture, but like treading that line of not being offensive, but still being funny. Do you have any advice maybe for younger comedians to not go across that line?
I think it's very hard to legislate about what is and isn't right. And I think it's dangerous to do it. All I can say is that when I write comedy, I do, or with my co-writers, we do occasionally edit and censor ourselves if we feel we are. Sometimes we'll do a joke, I think it's funny, and then we'll think, actually, no, that's slightly irresponsible because it encourages a sort of a lazy stereotype. So we'll just get rid of the joke and do something else. And we do that ourselves, because in actual fact, some of those jokes we think we probably could get away with, but we don't do it because we don't want to, because we don't want to be part of the problem. Mm-hmm. But that's not the same as saying, you need to say this, make rules. If you make rules, that's dangerous because the rules are, you can always see examples of, and it's that censorious. Self-censorship is, I think, okay. Censorship from other people is dangerous. But I think you have to trust people or encourage people to make responsible decisions by themselves. Sometimes it is delicate, you know. I don't think you say you can't laugh at these people, you can't laugh at these. It depends what the intention is behind it. When I did Philomena, the character Philomena, who's a real person, you know, in that film, we at some points we sort of look like we're mocking her, we're having fun with her. At some points we're sort of laughing at her. But ultimately, she's the one who has the last laugh. She's the one who, you know, is raised up and is elevated. But you sort of have to invite the audience to join you in laughing at her early on. And you can't say you're not allowed to do this. So I would say that it's just what the intention is behind it. As a rule, I always try to punch up and not down. You know, what's the ultimate goal? And what's the intention behind it? Is your joke motivated by contempt for someone who can't speak for themselves? Then it's probably wrong. Is your comedy motivated because through love and through something because you want to celebrate something, or you want to mock ignorance? Then that's fine. So that's sort of going all around the houses there with advice, but that's my long-winded advice. It's a complicated thing, but I'm very wary about saying this is wrong. There's some jokes that I hear comedians do, and I think I don't like that. I think that's bullying and hectoring, and I wouldn't do it. But I wouldn't stop. I wouldn't censor a comedian or say he couldn't say something. But having said that, because I'm sort of anti-censorship, that also means that I can criticise someone else if I think they've got it wrong.
Well, it's a game of risk taking, I guess, in every aspect. And one of the things I really appreciative of is that you take that risk taking as well in the dramatic stuff. In that Philomena was very funny, but absolutely made me cry as well. So like it's a balancing act, and it's something that I think you managed to do fantastically well. But looking forward at The Reckoning, that show that's coming out, I think later this year, I'm already anticipating a reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, all the work I try to do is I like to do things that do. I mean, the most interesting work, if you're lucky enough to be able to make choices, not many people are creatively. There's sort of fairly there's a very narrow field of choice, and I at this stage in my life and career, I'm able to make choices, have the luxury of making choices. So that carries with the responsibility, and in actual fact, to do things that are worthwhile or have value, you have to take a risk and risk failure, risk something going on to make stuff that is interesting, worthwhile, and has substance. And so the Reckoning, which is about Jimmy Savile, is one of those that fits into that category. Lots of people are anxious about it, but I think it will vindicate itself when it comes around. It was, I think as a rule, when you're talking about dark periods of our, I use that in the Catholic sense. When I say Catholic, I mean all-encompassing as well as religiously. That when we talk about our cultural past, it's best to talk about things than to not talk about them. I mean, to sort of draw a parallel between Jimmy Savile and Philomena, although I didn't write the Savile projects, Jeff Pope, who wrote Philomena, produced the Jimmy Savile, The Reckoning. Both those projects are talking about periods of the cultural past, which need to be talked about to help you learn from it and move on. You sweep things under the carpet, then you're liable to have those things happen again because you haven't learned from them.
Well, off the back of Philomena, which was nominated, I think, for Best Picture and for Best Screenplay as well.
That's right, yes. Yeah.
I imagine like Hollywood must have come knocking quite a bit, where it's like, this is like attention grabbing, like, because it was a fantastic film that kind of, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but comparatively to some of the bigger Hollywood projects, people were probably taken aback at how great it was. What was that the situation? Like,
yes, you have a moment where everyone sort of knocks on your door and says, do you want to do this or do you want to do this? And they invite you to do stuff or offer you lots of money to write things you don't really want to write. And then it sort of calms down again and they're on to the next thing. But certainly for me, it was a game changer in terms of, that it opened the door to all these other projects I've done since, which are more dramatic and which is what I wanted to do. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that. But but certainly, I didn't sort of chase the money after that. I mean, sometimes you get asked if you want to write a big, big budget Hollywood type blockbuster, if you want to get involved in that kind of thing. And I don't really have the motivation to. I'm very comfortably off. I don't have to worry about money. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I sometimes wonder why people, I mean, I'm sure the people who do those things and do chase those kind of big Hollywood blockbusters and earn lots of money and earn fortunes, it just doesn't really interest me. I'm not interested.
Was there anything at all, like be it a role or even like a project where you're, in hindsight, you were like, gosh, I probably should have said yes to that one?
Well, apart from Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and any of the Avengers, not really, no.
Well, I would absolutely watch Steve Coogan as Batman. Like Robert Pattinson can step aside.
I'd have to do the old-fashioned one with the underpants on the outside of the lycra. Yeah.
Well, like retro's back. Nostalgia is just always. Yeah. When it comes to the show that you're doing, the stratagem show, it requires a very different type of energy, I imagine, because, in front of cameras and stuff, you can take your time, you can take breaks. How do you prepare for what to me sounds like an absolutely exhausting?
Well, it's a good question, but it's with a live show, you have to think about the medium and try and we don't know. The fact is, no one has all the answers. So some of it is a shot in the dark. You sort of you learn, you use what you've learned. And then some of it's guesswork, and you sort of have a group view of things, and you sort of take it from there. But what you have to acknowledge is when you're doing a live show, it's very different from when you're doing a podcast or a recorded show. You're there in front of a big crowd of people, and you have to, at some point, please the crowd. So we're trying to sort of make it a bit more showy and have some big sort of. We're still going to have lots of clever jokes, but we also want some stupid, silly jokes because I'm a fan of those too, and we want a bit of yin to go with the yang.
And on stage for that, is it better for you to like keep your head down and barrel through, or do you actively feed off the reaction from the audience?
If you're panicking and it's probably the first night, you're tempting to keep your head down and barrel through. But we're doing some road. We'll take it on. We'll do some sort of previews and try and make sure that the wheels are properly screwed on the car so they don't fall off. Especially as our first show is Dublin, so we want to make sure it's. I'm really pleased it's there because I think that I'm expecting a generally warm welcome.
Are you sure? Yeah.
From Dublin because, I just think, so I'm really pleased we're starting the show there. But yeah, you have to embrace the fact we're in a big space. Yeah.
And after, I think it must be 2 or 3 years since a proper big comedy act on stage, people haven't been able to get out. You must feel like almost a hunger from the audience already. Like we are ready to laugh en masse right now.
I think that the last 2 years plus have been difficult for everybody, to different degrees. And I think there is also the idea that that people want to laugh together. You can laugh on your own when you watch something. We all watch little clips of things on our phones and we laugh on our own, don't we? But in actual fact, it's so much more enjoyable to laugh with a group of people, and it's infectious. Everyone's laughing at something, and you find it funny too. It's life affirming, and I feel like right now. I mean, I was because you have to book all these venues, and you don't know whether everyone's going to still be wearing masks or whether things will be relaxed. I think, touch wood, we've got the timing right, and I think people will be ready for it because it is about letting our hair down and relaxing again and learning to laugh together. Because, funnily enough, one of the sort of consequences of COVID is this sort of polarization, people being isolated, and that could be often being isolated with their opinions and we all deal with social media, so you can't see the whites of people's eyes. And it's important that when the other thing about laughter and laughing in a group is it's a way of connecting with people in a positive way. That a group of people in a room, especially a big group, may have very different views on cultural things, on political issues, on all kinds of issues. But if they all laugh at the same time, then in that moment they're connected, they're joined together. So it's a very sort of, I've learned to appreciate the healing power of comedy.
And one last question, if that's okay. What would it take for you to bring the trip to Ireland?
It's funny, you're not the first person who said that. And when we did, the last trip we did was the trip to Greece, and I was lobbying the director, Michael, to come to Ireland. I said, it's not just boiled potatoes, boiled cabbage, and boiled bacon anymore. And a big knob of butter, which is very nice. Which is very nice, by the way. Which is very nice, by the way. I said, and also I felt like it was we all know, we'll talk about Ireland forever, but it's gone through this massive, massive cultural change over the last 40 years. Some things have changed, some things have stayed the same, but it's. The Ireland of 40, 50 years ago, young people, I think, have reclaimed Ireland, and so it's really interesting. It's very interesting what's happened to the country over that, and the population and other things that that starts to go the other way, and the whole legacy of Irish history and where it is now, and where the Irish are culture in the world now, is something I would like to explore. The trip would have been a fun way to do it, and we might that might yet still happen.
Fantastic, Steve. Thank you so much.